Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. Derek Barnes stood on the balcony of his Montana ranch house, watching the sun dip behind the rugged mountain range. At 45, he had built his empire from the ground up, a chain of luxury hunting lodges that offered the wealthy a taste of wilderness without compromising comfort. His weathered hands gripped the railing as he mulled over the call he'd received earlier that day. His stepdaughter, Victoria, had been buzzing with excitement about the surprise party she was planning for her mother's 50th birthday. Though Camille wasn't Victoria's biological mother, the young woman had thrown herself into the preparations with her usual drive and attention to detail. Victoria had been just 8 when Derek married her mother, Adelaide. When Adelaide passed away from cancer 5 years ago, Derek had continued to raise Victoria as his own. Camille entered their lives when Victoria was 16, elegant, charming, and seemingly accepting of the teenage girl who came with a wheelchair and a protective father. It had been 8 years since then, and Derek had worked hard to give his new family everything they could want. Thinking about work again, Camille's voice broke into his thoughts as she slipped her arms around his waist from behind. Just appreciating what we've built, Derek replied, turning to face her. Still radiant at nearly 50, Camille stood tall and graceful, her auburn hair glowing in the fading sunlight. You built, she corrected with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm just along for the ride. That's not true, Derek said. You've played a big part, especially with the social connections that brought in some of our top clients. What he didn't mention was how often those events now happen without him. Speaking of social connections, Camille said, I've been invited to a Wilderness Conservation Board retreat next month in Jackson Hole. Another one. Derek raised an eyebrow. That's the third in 2 months. It's important networking, Derek. You know that. Her tone was sharper than it had been in their early years. Of course, Derek said, his face calm. Years of business had taught him to recognize when someone was bluffing or hiding something. Camille had her own tells, and lately, they were becoming more frequent. Later that evening, while Camille soaked in the bath, Derek's phone rang. Victoria's name lit up the screen. Hey, kiddo, he answered warmly. Dad. Victoria's voice sparkled with excitement. I've finalized almost everything for Mom's party, the venue, catering, entertainment. It's going to be amazing. Derek smiled. At 24, Victoria had inherited his tenacity and sharp mind. Despite being in a wheelchair since the accident that killed her biological father when she was 6, she had graduated top of her class and now worked remotely as a software developer. I can't wait to see it. She's going to be thrilled, Derek said. How much do you need to cover the final expenses? That's why I'm calling. Victoria hesitated. The total cost had exceeded her expectations due to last-minute changes to accommodate everyone on Mom's guest list. It's $3,300. Derek whistled. That's quite a party. I know it's a lot, Victoria said quickly. I can cover some from my savings. Nonsense, Derek interrupted firmly. I'll transfer the money tonight. Camille deserves the best. After hanging up, Derek sat in his office, staring at the framed photo on his desk himself, Camille, and Victoria at Victoria's college graduation. They looked happy, like a perfect family. But something had shifted over the past year. Subtle changes in Camille's behavior, unexplained absences, and now these frequent retreats. Derek opened his laptop and transferred the money to Victoria's account. Then, after a moment's thought, he launched another program, one that would let him remotely access Camille's phone the next time she connected to their home Wi-Fi. In his years building his business, Derek had learned one crucial lesson. Trust was valuable, but verification was priceless. 3 weeks flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Victoria called or texted daily with updates on the party, and Derek admired her meticulous attention to detail. She had coordinated with Camille's friends to make sure everyone important to her stepmother was invited, hired a small orchestra to play Camille's favorite classical pieces, and arranged for a renowned chef to cater the event. Meanwhile, Derek's suspicions about Camille only deepened. The remote access to her phone had uncovered text messages with someone saved simply as G, harmless on the surface, but heavy with implication. There were also unexplained hours when her phone's GPS showed her at places she never mentioned visiting, including a luxury apartment building in Bozeman. 5 days before the party, Derek was reviewing lodge bookings in his home office when Victoria called. Dad. Her voice was tight with emotion. Something's wrong. What is it? Derek sat up straight, instantly alert. I just got off the phone with Trent Ward, Victoria said. Trent was the event coordinator at the venue she had booked. He'd called to confirm final arrangements and mentioned something strange. He asked if they needed to set up the accessible entrance for the party. But Mom specifically told him not to worry about wheelchair access, saying no one attending would require it. Victoria's voice cracked. I thought maybe it was a mistake, so I called Renee to double-check the guest list. Renee Phillips was Camille's closest friend, someone Derek had never trusted. What did she say? Derek asked, though he already feared the answer. Victoria hesitated. She got flustered, started making excuses, then finally admitted that Mom asked her not to include me on the guest list. Victoria paused, clearly fighting back tears. She said Mom told her the party was for close family and friends only, and that I'm not her real daughter anyway. The silence that followed was suffocating. Derek felt a cold rage rising inside him, the kind he hadn't felt since his early days, when rivals tried to push him out of business deals. I see, he said at last, his voice dangerously calm. Dad, I've spent 3 weeks organizing this, Victoria said, voice trembling. I called in favors, coordinated with dozens of people. I wanted it to be perfect for her. Victoria's voice was barely audible. Why would she do this? Derek closed his eyes, piecing together the fragments that were beginning to form a troubling picture. I don't know, sweetheart, but I'll find out. After comforting Victoria and ending the call, Derek remained still at his desk. 8 years of marriage, and he truly believed Camille had accepted Victoria as her own. He had made his position clear from the start. Victoria was his daughter in every meaningful way, and anyone in his life needed to accept that. Had it all been a facade? Or had something changed? The door to his office opened, and Camille stepped inside, wearing a smile. There you are. I was thinking we could go out to that new restaurant everyone's been talking about. Derek studied the face he'd woken up to for 8 years. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about your birthday party. Camille's smile flickered. What about it? It's supposed to be a surprise, isn't it? It was, Derek said evenly, until Victoria found out she wasn't invited. The change in Camille's expression was subtle but unmistakable. First surprise, then irritation, finally settling into a defensive stance. Oh, that. I was going to talk to you about it. Were you? Derek leaned back in his chair. When exactly? The day of the party, when we show up without her. Don't be dramatic. Camille waved him off. It's an adult party at an upscale venue. Victoria wouldn't enjoy it anyway. It's not appropriate for her. Not appropriate. Derek's voice stayed steady, but his eyes turned cold steel. The party she spent 3 weeks organizing, the party I paid $3,300 for, isn't appropriate for my daughter. Camille flinched at the mention of the amount. She spent that much? That's excessive. She hesitated, then added quietly, and she's not. Not what, Camille? Not your real daughter. Derek rose slowly. You're twisting my words, Camille said, but her eyes darted away. I just meant this is a milestone birthday for me. I wanted to celebrate with my closest friends without worrying about accommodations. Accommodations. Derek repeated the word as if it were poison. You mean the wheelchair? You're making this into something it's not, Camille insisted. It's my birthday. Shouldn't I get to decide who's there? Of course, Derek nodded. And I get to decide where I'll be, which, as it turns out, won't be at your party. Camille's eyes widened. Don't be ridiculous. You have to be there. What will people think? I imagine they'll think whatever you tell them, Derek said coolly. You're quite good at that. He walked to the door and opened it, a clear dismissal. We won't be attending your party. Victoria and I will celebrate elsewhere. But don't worry, we'll send a gift. On the morning of Camille's birthday, Derek and Victoria shared breakfast in his downtown office. The sleek, modern space overlooked the heart of the small Montana city where Barnes Luxury Expeditions was headquartered. You didn't have to skip the party for me, Dad, Victoria said, though her grateful smile suggested otherwise. If they don't want me there, I don't want to be there, Derek replied, spreading jam on his toast. Besides, I thought we could use this time to talk about some business ideas. I've been thinking your technical skills could really benefit us. Victoria brightened. Despite working remotely as a software developer for a tech company, she had always shown interest in her father's business. What kind of ideas? She asked. Digital expansion, Derek replied. Virtual reality experiences of our expeditions, advanced booking systems, maybe even a membership platform. The luxury wilderness market is evolving, and we need to stay ahead. As they brainstormed, Derek's phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. What's wrong? Victoria asked. Nothing important, Derek said, slipping the phone into his pocket. But it was important, very important. The message was from Perry Hole, the private investigator Derek had hired to monitor the luxury apartment in Bozeman. It read, male subject identified as Garrett Reed. Photos and background incoming. Derek refocused on Victoria. So what do you think? Could you help develop something like that? Victoria nodded eagerly. Absolutely. I've been working with VR interfaces for 6 months. I could definitely build a prototype. Good, Derek smiled. Then it's official. I want to hire you as Director of Digital Innovation. Victoria's eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely, Derek said. It's time Barnes Luxury Expedition steps into the future, and there's no one I trust more to lead the way. Their conversation was interrupted by Derek's assistant, Lloyd, who entered carrying a package. This just arrived for Mrs. Barnes's party, sir, Lloyd said. The messenger said it needs to be delivered to the venue by noon. Derek glanced at the elegantly wrapped box. Thank you, Lloyd. I'll make sure it gets there. After Lloyd left, Victoria raised an eyebrow. I thought we weren't participating in the party. We're not attending, Derek corrected. But I promised we'd send a gift. What is it? Victoria asked, curious. Derek's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Just something to mark the occasion. Later that afternoon, as Camille's birthday party was in full swing at the upscale venue Victoria had chosen, Derek received another text from Renee Phillips. What the hell was in that gift? Half the guests left after she opened it. Derek slipped his phone back into his pocket without responding and turned to Victoria. Looks like your stepmother is enjoying our gift. What did you send her? Victoria asked, concern in her voice. The truth, Derek said simply. Now, let's get back to this VR project. I think we could change how people experience wilderness adventures. As they talked, Derek's phone buzzed repeatedly, but he ignored all incoming messages. The only one he read later was the detailed report on Garrett Reed, which included his ties to the Wilderness Conservation Board, previous marriages, and most importantly his connection to Camille. The gift Derek had sent contained a simple USB drive. On it was a carefully prepared slideshow, photos of Camille entering the luxury apartment building in Bozeman, images of Camille and Garrett Reed embracing at a restaurant, screenshots of their text messages, and financial records showing transfers from Derek's accounts to unknown recipients that aligned with Camille's retreats. The final slide was a photo of Derek and Victoria taken that morning, captioned simply, "Happy birthday from your family. We hope you enjoy the party we paid for." When Camille returned home that night, her face was pale. She found Derek sitting calmly in the living room, sipping whiskey. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Long enough," Derek replied, "but not as long as you've been lying." "I can explain." "I'm sure you can." Derek cut her off sharply, "but I'm not interested in explanations. What matters now is what happens next." He set down his glass. "And that, Camille, is entirely up to you." The look in his eyes told her everything. This wasn't a man who would forgive, forget, or compromise. This was a man carefully plotting how to dismantle her world, piece by piece. Camille moved out the day after her disastrous birthday party, leaving with 2 suitcases and a string of excuses about needing space to think. Derek made no effort to stop her. Instead, he watched from the window as she loaded her bags into her Mercedes and drove away, presumably to her lover's Bozeman apartment. "Are you okay, Dad?" Victoria asked, wheeling into the room after Camille left. Derek turned from the window. "I'm fine. This has been coming for a while. What happens now?" "Now," Derek said, "we find out how deep this rabbit hole goes." The next morning, Derek called his most trusted employee, Bryson Webb, operations manager and longtime confidant at Barnes Luxury Expeditions. "I need a full audit of all company accounts for the past 3 years," Derek said when Bryson arrived at his home office. "An absolute discretion." Bryson, a former military intelligence officer with a steely gaze, nodded. "Is this about Mrs. Barnes leaving?" "It has everything to do with it," Derek confirmed. "I have reason to believe she's been diverting company funds." Bryson kept his expression neutral. "That's what we need to uncover." Derek handed him a file. "This contains everything I've gathered so far on her associate, Garrett Reed. I want every connection between them, every financial transaction, any shared properties, everything." "Consider it done," Bryson said, taking the file. "What about the other operations?" Derek asked. "Expansion plans proceed as normal," Derek instructed. "Victoria will join as Director of Digital Innovation and will work closely with you on technology." After Bryson left, Derek called Selena Ward, his attorney. Unlike the calm Bryson, Selena was known for her fierce approach to business and matrimonial law. "I need you to prepare divorce papers," Derek said bluntly when she answered. "On what grounds?" Selena asked. "All business, infidelity, financial impropriety, and anything else we can use," Derek replied. "And I want the most airtight prenuptial enforcement possible." "The prenup is solid," Selena assured him. "We made sure of that before the wedding. But I'll need evidence of infidelity and financial wrongdoing to lock it down." "You'll have it," Derek promised. Over the next 2 weeks, Derek plunged into his investigation. Remote access to Camille's phone revealed a wealth of information: texts, emails, photos, and location data. Bryson's audit uncovered troubling patterns: consulting fees paid to shell companies, unexplained expenses charged to company accounts, and carefully disguised discrepancies in the books. But it was Perry Holt's investigation of Garrett Reed that brought the most disturbing discoveries to light. Reed wasn't just Camille's lover, he was a cunning con artist with a history of targeting wealthy women, draining their finances, and disappearing. He had been married 3 times, each marriage ending after his wife's assets mysteriously vanished. Most alarming, Reed had ties to several competitors of Barnes' luxury expeditions. The timing of business setbacks, lost contracts, leaked proposals, poached clients lined up perfectly with Camille's growing involvement with Reed. Derek sat across from Perry in a private room at his downtown office, going over the findings. "So, they've been planning this for what? A year? 2?" Derek asked, his voice icy. "At least 18 months, Perry confirmed. According to the electronic trail, they met at a conservation gala in Denver, and their relationship escalated quickly after that along with the money." Perry continued, "Conservative estimate is about $800,000 funneled through multiple channels. Consulting fees paid to companies Reed controls, inflated vendor contracts that earn him kickbacks, and direct transfers disguised as charitable donations to non-existent conservation groups." Derek nodded, absorbing the information. "What about the competitors? Any proof of corporate espionage?" "Nothing solid enough to hold up in court," Perry admitted, "but the circumstantial evidence is strong. Every time you lost a major client or had a proposal undercut, Camille had access to the information and met with Reed shortly before." "That's enough for me," Derek said firmly. "And the properties?" "He owns the apartment in Bozeman, but we found evidence they've been looking at houses together in Costa Rica. There have been several wire transfers totaling about $150,000 to a bank there." Derek's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Mom called. Wants to talk. Says it's important. Should I meet her?" Derek frowned. Camille hadn't contacted him directly since leaving, only through her attorney. Now she was reaching out to Victoria. "I need to go," Derek said. "Perry, send me everything you have and keep digging. I want every last detail of their operation." As he drove to Victoria's apartment, Derek pieced together what this new development might mean. If Camille was reaching out to Victoria, she was desperate. The preliminary divorce papers had been served the day before, outlining enforcement of the prenuptial agreement that would leave Camille with a minimal settlement at best. Her comfortable lifestyle was about to collapse. Victoria was waiting when he arrived, clearly upset. "She told me she needed to explain that it wasn't what it looked like," Victoria said. "It's exactly what it looks like," Derek said grimly. "But I'm curious what story she's spinning." They didn't have long to wait. At the agreed time, there was a knock at Victoria's door. When Victoria opened it, Camille stood there, looking far less polished than usual. Her designer clothes were replaced by jeans and a simple blouse, her makeup minimal. "Thank you for seeing me," Camille said, eyes nervously flicking to Derek. "I didn't know you'd be here. Did you think I'd let you manipulate my daughter without being present?" Derek asked coldly. Camille flinched. "I'm not here to manipulate anyone. I just want to explain." "Then explain," Victoria said, her voice unusually hard. "Explain why you excluded me from the party you planned. Explain why you've been betraying my father." Camille sank onto the couch. "It's complicated, Garrett," Camille began. "He has a way of making you believe anything. When we met, he said he could help expand Derek's business internationally. He knew the right people, had connections. I thought I was helping by being with him, by giving him access to confidential information." Derek's voice was icy. "It didn't start that way." Camille insisted. "No, it started as business, then it changed. He made me feel valued, appreciated, not just an accessory to your success. So this is my fault." Derek raised an eyebrow. "No, that's not what I'm saying." Camille backtracked quickly. "I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but Garrett isn't who you think he is. He's dangerous, Derek. When I told him I wanted to end things, he threatened me. Said he had evidence I helped him steal company information, that I'd go to jail." Victoria asked quietly, "And the party? How does that fit into this sob story?" Camille looked ashamed. "That was wrong. Inexcusable. Garrett said having you there would complicate things, that we needed to distance ourselves from family attachments. So you just went along with it." Victoria's voice shook with anger. "After everything my dad has done for you." "I wasn't thinking clearly," Camille whispered. "I've been trapped, afraid to leave, afraid to stay. I need help, Derek. I'll tell you everything. Give you all the evidence you need against Garrett if you'll just help me get out of this." Derek studied the face he once trusted completely. Was she telling the truth? Another of Reed's victims, manipulated and threatened? Or was this just another kind of last-ditch attempt to salvage something from the wreckage of her schemes? "You want my help?" he asked finally. "What exactly are you asking for?" "Protection," Camille said. "And leniency. I know I've done unforgivable things, but I was coerced. I can help you get everything back, expose Garrett for what he really is." Derek exchanged a glance with Victoria, who remained skeptical. "I'll consider it," Derek said after a long pause. but I'll need everything. Every email, every text, every account number, every meeting you had with him. And I'll need to verify your story. Camille nodded eagerly. Whatever you need. I just want this nightmare to end. After she left, Victoria turned to her father. You don't believe her, do you? Derek's expression was calm. I believe in evidence. And right now, all the evidence points to her being a willing participant in Reed's schemes. But if she's offering information we can use against him. You're going to use her, Victoria realized, just like she used us. Derek confirmed. The difference is I'm being transparent about it. The next morning, Bryce and Webb arrived at Derek's home with new findings from the audit. The additional evidence painted an even more damning picture of Camille's role in the financial misconduct. There's no way she wasn't aware of what was going on, Bryson concluded, showing Derek emails where Camille explicitly instructed the accounting department to process payments to shell companies. These weren't just rubber stamp approvals. She was actively directing the funds. Derek nodded, unsurprised. What about her claim that Reed threatened her? Possible, but unlikely given the timeline, Bryson said. The diversion started small and gradually increased, a classic embezzlement pattern. If she'd been coerced, you'd expect sudden large transfers. That's what I thought too. Derek said, for now, we'll play along with her story. It gives us access to information we might not get otherwise. What's the endgame here? Bryson asked. The divorce is underway. We've already frozen her access to company accounts and are documenting everything for potential criminal charges. What more do you want? Derek's expression darkened. Justice. Camille and Reed didn't just steal money, they betrayed trust. They tried to tear down everything I've built, everything that would have been Victoria's legacy. That deserves more than just a legal response. Bryson studied him carefully. What kind of response are you thinking? The kind that ensures they never do this to anyone else, Derek said. The kind that leaves them with exactly what they planned to leave me with, nothing. Later that day, Derek met Camille at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town neutral ground. She arrived carrying a laptop and several folders, looking nervous but determined. I've brought everything I have, she said, sliding into the booth across from him. Account numbers, meeting dates, emails, everything. And in return, Derek asked, not touching the materials. Protection and leniency, Camille replied. I know the prenup is ironclad, but maybe we can work out something more equitable. And I need your help dealing with Garrett. He's dangerous, Derek. More dangerous than you know. Derek considered her words. Tell me about the Costa Rica property. Camille's eyes widened slightly. What property? The one you and Reed have been transferring money to purchase, Derek said calmly. The one you plan to escape to after finishing your little operation. That's Garrett's project, Camille stammered. He mentioned something about an investment property, but I wasn't involved. Interesting, Derek said. Because the wire transfers came from our joint account, the one I set up for your personal use, the one only you had access to. Camille's face went pale. I can explain. I'm sure you can. Derek cut her off. Just like you can explain why you told Victoria's friend Trent that no one in wheelchairs would be attending your party. Just like you can explain why you referred to my daughter as not your real daughter. Renee misunderstood, Camille insisted. Save it, Derek said, his voice suddenly hard. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me everything you have on Reed, every dirty little detail. Not for leniency, not for protection, because it's the only way you walk away from this with anything at all. Are you threatening me? Camille asked, her voice small. I'm making you an offer, Derek corrected. Cooperate fully, and the divorce proceeds as outlined in the prenup, you get the settlement we agreed on 8 years ago. Withhold anything, try to play me against Reed, and I'll make sure you're implicated in every illegal act you two committed. You wouldn't, Camille whispered. It would damage the company, your reputation. Try me, Derek said, his eyes cold. I rebuilt once before. I can do it again if necessary. After a long pause, Camille nodded. Fine. What do you want to know? For the next 2 hours, Derek painstakingly extracted every detail of the operation, Reed's methods, their communication systems, the competitors involved, the offshore accounts. Camille held nothing back, whether out of fear or self-preservation. Camille provided names, dates, and specifics that filled in the final gaps in Derek's understanding. By the time they finished, he had a complete picture of the operation, and it was far more extensive than he'd imagined. Reed hadn't just been after Derek's wealth. He was systematically targeting the entire luxury expedition industry. He used inside information from one company to gain leverage with another, manipulating competitors and turning them against each other for his personal gain. One last thing, Derek said as they stood to leave. Does Reed know about the divorce papers? About the party? Yes, Camille admitted. He was furious. Said you'd ruined everything. That we'd have to move up the timeline. Accelerate to what? The final extraction, he called it. Taking everything we could and vanishing. That's why I came to you, she added. I finally realized how deep I was in, and I got scared. Derek nodded slowly. Here's what you're going to do. Tell Reed I'm open to a private settlement, outside the prenup. Say you've convinced me there might have been a misunderstanding, and that I'm willing to meet with both of you to discuss terms. He won't buy that, Camille said. Not after the party. Make him believe it, Derek said firmly. Tell him I want to avoid scandal, that I'll pay to keep it quiet. He's greedy, he'll believe what he wants to believe. And then what? Camille asked. Derek stood. Then we all get what we deserve. The meeting was scheduled for the following Friday at Derek's downtown office neutral ground for what would be a decisive confrontation. In the days leading up to it, Derek worked tirelessly to prepare, coordinating with Bryson, Perry, and Selena to ensure every detail was perfectly aligned. Are you sure this is the right strategy? Selena asked during their final planning session. We have enough to press criminal charges. We could let the legal system take it from here. The legal system is slow and unpredictable, Derek replied, and it brings the kind of publicity that could hurt the company. This way is faster, cleaner, more decisive. And Camille? Bryson asked. Can we rely on her to play her part? We don't need to trust her, Derek said coolly. She'll act in her own best interest, and right now, that lines up with ours. After that, he shrugged. She's on her own. The day before the meeting, Victoria called her father. Are you sure you don't want me there tomorrow? Absolutely, Derek replied. This won't be pleasant. I'm not fragile, Dad, Victoria insisted. I've survived worse than watching you dismantle the woman who couldn't even invite me to the party I helped plan. It's not about protecting you, Derek explained. It's about Reed. He doesn't know how much you know or how involved you are with the company. That gives us an edge. For what? Victoria asked warily. What are you really planning? Justice, Derek said simply. Then, shifting the subject, he added, now, tell me how the VR prototype is progressing. The board's excited for your presentation next month. The topic change was deliberate, and Victoria accepted it reluctantly. What Derek didn't tell her was that the VR project was more than just a business expansion. It was also a critical piece in his plan for dealing with Camille and Reed. Friday came clear and brisk, a typical autumn day in Montana. Derek dressed with precision, selecting one of his sharpest suit's armor for the confrontation ahead. He arrived at the office early to ensure every detail was ready. Bryson and Perry were stationed in a nearby conference room, monitoring the proceedings, while Selena would join the main meeting to handle legal matters. Right on time at 10 a.m., Camille arrived. She appeared tense but composed, dressed conservatively in a navy blue suit. You ready for this? Derek asked. As ready as I'll ever be, she replied. Garrett thinks this is his opportunity to negotiate a final payout. He has no idea what's really coming. Good, Derek nodded. Stick to the plan. Let him believe whatever he wants until the truth hits. 20 minutes later, Garrett Reed strode in with the swagger of a man convinced he was in control. He was younger than Derek had expected, early 40s, with the polished charm of someone who made his living on persuasion. His handshake was confident, his smile well-rehearsed. Mr. Barnes, he said smoothly, it's good to finally meet you properly. I only wish it were under better circumstances. Indeed, Derek replied, motioning toward the conference table, where Camille was already seated. Shall we get started? Once everyone was seated, Selena entered and introduced herself as Derek's legal counsel. Reed's eyes flickered with curiosity, but he held back any comment, clearly reassessing his strategy. I understand you're open to some kind of resolution, Reed began. One that benefits us all. That depends on your definition of benefit, Derek said evenly. Camille has shared some troubling details about your relationship and about your business dealings. Reed's gaze shifted to Camille, who avoided his eyes and stared at her hands. I'm sure there have been some misunderstandings. Emotions run high. Accusations get made in the heat of the moment. There are no misunderstandings, Derek interrupted coolly. In fact, we have a very clear understanding of what's been going on. He opened a folder and slid a set of documents across the table, records of wire transfers, shell companies, and corporate espionage. It's all here, Mr. Reed. Reed glanced at the papers, his face blank. I'm not sure what you're suggesting, but if there were financial discrepancies, I'm sure Camille can clarify. As for our personal relationship, well, marriages are complex. Maybe if you'd been more present. Let's skip the games, Derek cut in. We know everything: the previous marriages, the fraud, your strategy of targeting wealthy women and businesses, the Costa Rica property, everything. For the first time, Reed's facade cracked. These are serious allegations. If you're threatening me. It's not a threat, Selena said firmly. It's a statement of fact. We have enough evidence to pursue criminal charges. Against both of you. Reed's eyes narrowed as he turned to Camille. And what exactly have you told them? The truth, Camille replied, her voice trembling. It's over, Garrett. I can't keep doing this. The charm dropped from Reed's face, replaced by icy calculation. I see. So now you plan to save yourself by selling me out? How noble. No one's been sold out yet, Derek said. That's why we're here. To decide what happens next. Reed's tone shifted, cautious now. What exactly are you proposing? Derek leaned in. A clean break. No criminal charges, no public scandal. You return every cent you've taken, cut all ties with my competitors, and disappear permanently. And if I refuse? Reed asked. In response, Derek pressed a button on the conference phone. Bryson, bring in the files. Bryson entered, carrying a large box, which he set on the table before quietly exiting. This, Derek said, gesturing to the box, contains copies of everything we've uncovered, every wire transfer, email, and text message. Enough to ensure you spend the next 10 years in federal prison. And that's just from our private investigation. Imagine what the FBI could uncover. Reed's face paled, though his eyes were clearly calculating. You're bluffing. You wouldn't risk the company's reputation. The publicity alone. Try me. Derek replied, his voice calm. Some things are worth the fallout. A heavy silence settled over the room while Reed weighed his options. Finally, he gave a tight smile, the kind a predator gives when acknowledging another. Very well, he said. I underestimated you, Mr. Barnes. What exactly do you want me to do? Sign the documents Selena prepared, Derek instructed. They include full financial restitution, severance of all business ties within my industry, and a binding non-disclosure agreement. And Camille? Reed asked. What happens to her? That's between her and me, Derek said coldly. Your partnership is over. As of now. Reed laughed bitterly. Thrown under the bus the moment things go south. And here I thought we had something real. Camille. She didn't respond, eyes fixed on the table. Sign the papers, Garrett. It's over. For the next hour, they reviewed the documents. Reed tried to haggle over the terms, but he quickly realized he had no leverage. By early afternoon, everything was signed. We're done here, Derek said, collecting the paperwork. You have 48 hours to complete the financial transfers. Any deviation triggers the contingency clauses. Don't worry, Reed said, rising from his chair. I know when I've lost. You'll get your money. Once he was gone, Camille remained seated, dazed. Is it really over? That part is, Derek confirmed. Now we move to the next phase. Next phase? She repeated, confused. What do you mean? I thought you said. I said there would be no criminal charges if Reed complied. Derek interrupted. And there won't be. What comes next isn't about legalities, it's about consequences. Her face went pale. What are you going to do? Derek smiled, but it held no warmth. Exactly what you try to do to me. I'm going to take everything. The next 48 hours passed under high tension. True to his word, Reed began transferring funds according to the agreement. Nearly $800,000 was returned to the accounts of Barnes Luxury Expeditions, coming from various shell companies, offshore holdings, and personal accounts. It's happening, Bryson reported, scanning the records. He's transferring the money. Honestly, I thought he'd try to disappear. He thinks he's being clever, Derek replied, giving up some money to protect himself from greater consequences. What he doesn't realize is every transaction just gives us more insight into his entire financial web. Camille had moved into a modest apartment arranged by Derek, a temporary setup until the divorce was finalized. The prenuptial agreement remained firmly in place, capping her settlement at $250,000 along with a few personal belongings. Given the overwhelming evidence of her betrayal, she had no grounds to contest it. 10 days after the confrontation, Derek invited Victoria to his home. She found him in his office, surrounded by documents and digital displays. How's the VR project coming along? He asked as she wheeled herself in. Right on schedule, Victoria replied. The prototype is fully functional, and the team is integrating the new features. But I'm guessing that's not why you called me here. Derek smiled. His daughter could read him too well. No, it's not. I called you because it's time you knew the full plan. For the next hour, he detailed the operation. The legal agreements with Reed and Camille had merely been the groundwork. What came next would be far more precise, a calculated effort to dismantle Reed's empire and leave both him and Camille with nothing. The key is the Costa Rica property, Derek explained. Reed thinks it's safe, hidden beneath layers of shell companies. What he doesn't realize is that we've already identified those layers, and we're taking them apart one by one. To what end? Victoria asked. Even if you seize the property, it's just one asset. It's much more than that, Derek replied. It's their fallback plan, their security net. It's also where they've funneled a lot of untraceable money. We've tracked at least $2 million through accounts linked to that property, far more than what they stole from us. So, they've been scamming more than just you, Victoria said, realization dawning. Exactly, Derek nodded. And that's where your VR project becomes essential. He pulled up a presentation on one of the screens Victoria's prototype for Barnes luxury expeditions. It featured breathtaking virtual recreations of wilderness destinations, allowing clients to preview adventures before booking. "We're going to use this as bait," Derek said. "We'll market it as a revolutionary leap in luxury travel and opportunity with enormous returns for early investors." Victoria blinked. "And Reed's the target." "Reed," Derek confirmed, "along with every contact he's made through his scams. We'll pitch it as an exclusive opportunity, limited access, high rewards. Just the kind of ego trap he won't be able to resist." "But the project's real," Victoria pointed out. "It actually works. The technology is real," Derek agreed. "But the investment pitch? That's the illusion. By the time they figure it out, it'll be too late." Over the following weeks, the plan unfolded with clinical precision. Derek's team worked quietly, tracking Reed's network of contacts and collaborators. Legal filings were submitted for a new subsidiary, Barnes Immersive Experiences, which would serve as the VR venture's public face. Meanwhile, Camille grew increasingly uneasy in her isolation. Her calls to Derek went largely unanswered, and when he did respond, it was strictly business, discussing only logistical details of the divorce. Her attempts to reach Reed were also rebuffed. He had cut her off, focusing instead on salvaging what little he could from the wreckage. 3 weeks after the initial meeting, the trap was ready. Derek hosted a private event at one of his most opulent lodges, an unveiling of the VR technology to a hand-picked circle of industry elites. True to form, Reed had managed to secure an invitation through one of his remaining connections, drawn in by the scent of opportunity. The presentation was stunning. Victoria had outdone herself. The immersive VR experiences transported viewers into pristine, untouched wilderness with breathtaking realism. The accompanying investment prospectus was equally compelling, projecting returns that would make even the most conservative investors take notice. "We're opening this opportunity to a select group of partners," Derek announced to the gathered guests. "The minimum initial investment is $500,000, with projected returns of 300% within 18 months. After the presentation, Reed approached Derek at the bar, his confidence seemingly renewed. "Impressive technology," he said, swirling his whiskey. "Your daughter is remarkably talented." "She is," Derek replied coolly. "Though I'm surprised to hear you mention her, considering your partner's past attitude toward her." Reed gave a casual shrug. "Business is business. Personal feelings shouldn't get in the way of a promising venture." "Is that what this is to you? Just another business opportunity?" "Isn't that what it is to everyone here?" Reed countered. "We're all here to profit from innovation, Mr. Barnes." Derek studied the man who had nearly ruined both his family and company. "Some of us are after more than just profit. Some of us value legacy, reputation, relationships." "Noble ideals," Reed said, waving it off. "But when all is said and done, it's about the bottom line. Speaking of which, I'd like to discuss investment terms." "Oh," Derek raised an eyebrow. "After everything that's happened?" "Water under the bridge," Reed replied smoothly. "We had our differences, but this," he gestured to the VR setup, "this is the future. I'd be foolish to let history get in the way." "Send your details to my office," Derek said after a brief pause. "We'll consider your application like all the others." As Reed walked away, Bryson appeared at Derek's side. "He took the bait." "Of course he did," Derek said. "With men like him, greed always trumps caution." "What's the update on the Costa Rica property?" "Final paperwork was filed yesterday," Bryson reported. "The holding company is officially under our control." Reed has no clue. "Excellent," Derek nodded. "And the offshore accounts?" "We've identified all 7. The legal team is preparing to freeze them, citing suspicious activity." "Perfect," Derek said. "Time for phase 2. The next morning, the expected call came. Camille's voice was sharp with disbelief and irritation. "You invited Garrett to your presentation?" she asked. "After everything he's done?" "Business is business," Derek replied, echoing Reed's own words. "His money is as good as anyone else's." "This doesn't add up," Camille said. 2 weeks ago, you were ready to destroy him. What changed?" "Maybe I realized there are more profitable ways to settle our differences," Derek said calmly. "The VR project needs funding, and Reed has capital. He'll try to take control," Camille warned. "That's what he does." "Let him try," Derek said. "Would you be interested in joining the project? Given how well you know Reed's methods, you could be an asset." The offer clearly caught her off guard. "You're serious?" "Completely," Derek assured her. "The divorce is moving forward, but that doesn't mean we can't maintain a professional relationship. Come to the office tomorrow. We'll talk details." After ending the call, Derek turned to Perry Holt, who had been listening from across the room. "She'll contact Reed right away." "No doubt," Perry agreed. "What do you think he'll do?" "Exactly what we want him to do," Derek said. He'll see this as a chance to recover his losses and possibly even continue with his original scheme. Camille will pose as our inside source, he continued, feeding him information while pretending to be aligned with me. And you're going to allow that? Derek's smile was icy. I'm going to encourage it. Every detail she passes along will be precisely what we want Reed to hear. By the time they realize they've been manipulated, it'll be too late. 2 days later, Camille arrived at Derek's office for their scheduled meeting. Dressed impeccably, she projected confidence, though it was clearly a facade. Thank you for meeting with me, she said, taking a seat across from him. I've given your offer a lot of thought. And Derek prompted. I'm interested, Camille said cautiously, but I do have some concerns. How would this arrangement work given the ongoing divorce? And what exactly would my role be? The divorce is a personal matter, Derek replied evenly. This is purely business. Your role would be as a consultant focused on investor relations, identifying potential partners, facilitating introductions, that sort of thing. Because of my social network, Camille acknowledged. Exactly, Derek said. Despite everything that's happened, your connections are still valuable, and those connections can benefit this project. For the next hour, they discussed the arrangement in detail, her compensation, reporting structure, and expectations. Everything was presented as reasonable, even generous, considering the context. There's one more thing, Derek said as their meeting drew to a close. Given your insight into Garrett Reed's methods, I'd like you to be our primary liaison with him if he chooses to invest. Camille was visibly surprised, though she tried to mask it. You'd actually let him invest? Money is money, Derek replied calmly. And keeping potential threats close allows us to monitor them more effectively, unless you're uncomfortable working with him. No, she said quickly. No, I can handle Garrett. I'm just surprised you'd trust me with this. Trust is earned, Derek said pointedly. Consider this a chance to start earning it back. After Camille left, Bryson entered the room. She called Reed from her car. As planned, we recorded it. And Derek asked. She told him everything. Bryson confirmed. Said you were open to his investment and that she'd be his inside person. Derek gave a satisfied nod. Perfect. Now we move faster. I want the investment packages finalized by Friday. The investment structure for Barnes' immersive experiences had been crafted to look sophisticated, filled with holding companies, special purpose vehicles, and intricate escrow accounts. On the surface, it appeared to offer security for the revolutionary VR technology and optimal tax benefits. But in truth, it was engineered to funnel funds in one direction, allowing the capital to be legally redirected under specific conditions. Just as predicted, Reed was among the first to submit his investment proposal, offering a substantial $11.5 million, far exceeding the minimum. What he didn't realize was that every dollar would be rerouted to acquire his own hidden assets. A week after the submissions, Derek hosted an official signing ceremony at his downtown office for the project's first wave of investors. 12 individuals, including Reed, gathered to finalize their participation in what was being promoted as the future of luxury outdoor experiences. Before the formalities began, Derek addressed the room. Before we begin, he said, scanning the group, I want to thank each of you for your vision and commitment. What we're building here isn't just a business venture, it's a revolution in how the world experiences nature. The investors nodded with interest, clearly eager to be part of something innovative and highly profitable. As outlined in your prospectus, Derek continued, the initial capital will be held in escrow for 30 days while we finalize the technology patents. During that time, you'll have exclusive preview access to the system developments via our secure server. This was the crucial hook, the promise of insider access. It would keep the investors engaged and distracted during the vital 30-day window when Derek's team would be executing the most sensitive parts of their plan. The signing ceremony unfolded without a hitch. Each investor worked through the extensive documentation prepared by Derek's legal team. Reed signed with particular flair, clearly believing he had once again positioned himself advantageously poised to recover his losses and maybe even take control of the new technology. After the ceremony, Derek met with Victoria in a side room, where she had been monitoring the event in real time. All 12 signed, she asked. All 12, Derek confirmed, including 3 with direct ties to Reed. He's pulled his allies into this just like we hoped. And now, she asked. Now we target the offshore accounts, Derek replied. Their signatures gave us the final legal authority we needed. What Reed and the others didn't realize was that hidden deep within the hundreds of pages they'd signed were clauses authorizing specific financial verification procedures. These clauses gave Derek's team legal permission to audit the financial networks of all participants under the guise of protecting proprietary intellectual property. 2 days later, those clauses were activated. Reed's 7 offshore accounts repositories for years of stolen funds were flagged for suspicious activity. Simultaneously, paperwork was filed to transfer the Costa Rica property from the shell company, now under Derek's control, to a conservation trust, permanently removing it from Reed's grasp. He's going to realize what's happening, Victoria warned as Derek brought her up to speed. By the time he figures it out, Derek said calmly, it'll be too late. The financial mechanisms are already in motion. And besides, he still thinks the VR project is real and that his investment is safe. That belief will keep him cautious, at least for a few more crucial days. And Camille? She's been calling, Derek said, his voice colder. Trying to arrange lunch. Says she wants to reconnect. Should I meet with her? Keep her at a distance, Derek instructed. Feed her just enough of the narrative to make her feel useful, but give her nothing truly valuable. 3 weeks into the 30-day escrow period, Reed requested an urgent meeting. When he arrived at Derek's office, his normally pristine appearance was beginning to falter. His suit was slightly wrinkled, and tension etched deep lines across his face. There's an issue with some of my accounts, he said flatly, skipping any pleasantries. Accounts that have no connection to our business arrangement. Derek raised an eyebrow. That sounds troubling. Banking issues can be such a hassle. This isn't a glitch, Reed said, his tone clipped. These accounts are being reviewed because they've been linked to supposed security risks involving Barnes' immersive experiences. I know when I'm being targeted, Barnes. I trust you've reviewed the documents you signed. Derek asked with cool civility. Our standard security protocols include verification of all associated financial institutions to protect our intellectual property. If your accounts have been flagged, I assume there's a reason. This is retaliation, Reed accused, his voice tight. Because of what happened with Camille. This is business, Derek replied coolly. Nothing more, nothing less. If your financial dealings are clean, you've got nothing to worry about. The reviews will be completed and your access restored. And if I pull my investment? Reed challenged. That would be unfortunate, Derek said evenly. But as clearly outlined in the agreement, any early termination triggers a mandatory, comprehensive audit of all associated entities to ensure our intellectual property hasn't been compromised. That process typically takes 6 to 8 months. Reed's expression darkened. You've trapped me. I've protected my business interests, Derek responded, as any responsible executive would. Now, unless there's something else, I have another meeting. Reed stormed out without another word. Moments later, Bryson entered. He's making calls. A lot of them. To who? Derek asked. His lawyer, several other investors, and Camille. He's trying to form a coalition, some kind of unified pushback. Perfect, Derek said with a faint smile. The more he tries to rally support, the more of his network we expose. Keep tracking everything. 3 days later, the final phase of Derek's plan was ready. The financial verification procedures had uncovered more than just Reed's scams. 3 other investors were implicated in financial misconduct, all connected through a tangled series of transactions that led directly back to him. Even more significantly, Camille's full involvement had come to light. Far from being an unwilling accomplice or manipulated spouse, she had played an active role from the beginning, using her position as Derek's wife to infiltrate his business relationships and target several key associates. The morning of the reckoning, Derek met Victoria at her apartment. Are you sure you want to be there for this? He asked. It won't be pretty. I need to see it, Victoria said firmly. After everything they did to us, how they tried to ruin me, I need to see them fall. Derek nodded, recognizing her need for closure. Okay, but stay in the background. Watch, don't confront. I know how to handle myself, Dad, she said with a small smile. I've been watching you do it my whole life. At noon, the trap was sprung. Reed, Camille, and the 3 implicated investors arrived at the headquarters of Barnes Luxury Expeditions for what they believed was an emergency investor meeting. Over the past few days, they had been strategizing, ready to confront Derek with legal threats and accusations of deception. Instead, they found themselves in a conference room with Derek, Bryson, Perry Holt, Selena Ward, and several agents from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. What is this? Reed demanded, his eyes narrowing. Where are the other investors? The legitimate investors were briefed separately, Derek replied, unruffled. This meeting is for those whose actions have triggered a federal investigation. Federal investigation? One of Reed's associates blanched. What are you talking about? Perhaps Agent Dalton can clarify, Derek said, gesturing to one of the FBI agents. For the next 30 minutes, Agent Dalton presented the evidence collected, not just implicating Reed and Camille, but unraveling a widespread financial fraud network that stretched across multiple states and spanned several years. Thanks to the verification clauses buried in the investment documents, Derek's team had secured legal access to the entire operation. This is entrapment. Reed sputtered after the agent finished. You created a fake investment scheme just to lure us in. On the contrary, Derek replied evenly. Barnes Immersive Experiences is a legitimate business venture. The VR technology is real, the patents are genuine, and the 9 legitimate investors will see excellent returns. That you and your associates tried to hijack it for your own financial crimes is unfortunate, but hardly unexpected. You set us up, Camille said bitterly, turning to face Derek. The reconciliation, bringing me on as a consultant, it was all part of your scheme. Just as your marriage to me was part of yours. Derek responded coldly. The difference? Mine was legal. As the FBI agents began processing the arrests and collecting evidence, Victoria rolled forward from where she had been watching silently at the back of the room. You know what I find most telling? She said, looking directly at Camille for the first time. You couldn't even invite me to a birthday party I organized. You never looked past this wheelchair to see me as part of your family. But my father never saw me as limited, he saw my potential. And now, the technology that exposed all of you? I designed it. Camille was speechless, her expression frozen in a mix of shame and disbelief as the weight of the consequences hit her. As the group was escorted out, Derek placed a hand gently on Victoria's shoulder. It's over, he said quietly. Almost, Victoria replied. There's still one thing left. The federal investigation moved swiftly, powered by the mountain of evidence Derek's team had collected. Within weeks, Reed and his inner circle were charged with wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Seeing the overwhelming strength of the case, prosecutors offered plea deals to some of the lesser players in return for their testimony against Reed. Camille's situation was especially delicate. Though the evidence against her was overwhelming, Derek's legal team had deliberately left a path open, an opportunity for her to reduce her sentence if she fully cooperated and returned all stolen funds. 2 months after the confrontation, Derek received an unexpected request from Camille, a final meeting before her plea hearing. Against his instincts, he agreed and arranged to meet her at a small cafe near the courthouse. She looked like a shadow of her former self when she arrived, the confident socialite, replaced by a woman weighed down by the collapse of her world. Thank you for coming, she said softly, taking the seat across from him. What do you want, Camille? Derek asked, his tone flat. To explain, I guess, she murmured, eyes fixed on her coffee. Not that it changes anything. When I met Garrett, I didn't set out to betray you. He was different. Exciting. He made me feel like I was more than just Derek Barnes's wife. And that justified stealing from me, trying to sabotage my company, shutting my daughter out of her own celebration. Camille flinched at the mention of Victoria. That was inexcusable. I know. Garrett convinced me that keeping up appearances mattered more than doing the right thing. So is that why we're here? Derek asked. You're looking for forgiveness? No, she said quickly, shaking her head. I asked to meet because I wanted you to know I've told the prosecutors everything. Every detail, every account, every conversation. Not just about what we did, but about Garrett's past cons, his other partners, all of it. In exchange for a lighter sentence. Derek gave a slight nod. Yes, Camille admitted. I'm not noble enough to face 20 years in prison if I can avoid it. But also because it's the only thing I can still do to make any of this right. Derek studied the woman he had once loved, trying to reconcile the person sitting before him with the one he had married. It doesn't make it right, Camille. Nothing will. But it's something. The prosecutors say I'll probably get 5 years with the plea deal, she said quietly. After that, I don't know what comes next. That's not my concern, Derek said as he rose from his chair. You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences. Wait, Camille called out as he turned to leave. There's one more thing, about Victoria. Derek paused. What about her? Tell her I'm sorry, Camille whispered. I know it doesn't mean anything, but I am truly sorry for how I treated her. I'll tell her, Derek said after a brief silence. But you're right, it doesn't matter. Not to her, and not to me. A week later, Reed and Camille entered guilty pleas in federal court. Reed was sentenced to 18 years for masterminding the scheme. Camille, thanks to her cooperation, received a reduced sentence of 4 years. The financial restitution was extensive. All assets tied to their criminal activity were seized. Derek's team successfully traced and recovered over $7 million from offshore accounts and concealed investments. The Costa Rica property, now permanently transferred to a conservation trust, would never serve as the sanctuary they had imagined. 3 months after the sentencing, Barnes Immersive Experiences officially launched its first commercial VR expedition. The technology, developed under Victoria's guidance, was groundbreaking, offering users tailored wilderness adventures from anywhere in the world. The returns exceeded even the boldest projections, rewarding the legitimate investors handsomely. That evening, Derek and Victoria sat on the balcony of his ranch house, watching the same sunset he had watched the day Victoria first called about planning Camille's party. How does it feel? Victoria asked, her eyes fixed on the fading light. Knowing they can never hurt us again. It's satisfying, Derek replied. But not as satisfying as this seeing the business thrive. Knowing your vision will shape its future. I couldn't have done it without you, Victoria said. Not just the tech, but the strength. The way you protected us. That's what family does, Derek said simply. Real family. After a pause, Victoria added, Camille's lawyer sent me a letter. She wants to apologize. In person. Will you go? Victoria shook her head. No. Some betrayals run too deep. You taught me that. Derek nodded. He understood completely. In his world, loyalty was everything and betrayal was unforgivable. Those who crossed him learned, too late, that his memory was long and his justice unwavering. To the future, then, he said, lifting his glass. To the future, Victoria echoed. Built on our terms, not theirs. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, Derek felt a rare sense of peace. The threat was gone. Justice had prevailed. Most importantly, Victoria's legacy was protected. In the end, that was what truly mattered. The gift Camille had received on her birthday had only been the beginning, a preview of the reckoning to come. But the real gift, Derek now understood, was the lesson. That in a world full of treachery, only two things were worth fighting for: family and honor. And for anyone who dared threaten either, Derek Barnes demanded nothing less than absolute surrender. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.